in comparison to the services that were available in 1992, they are the same still today as they are today. The limited resources goes as far as outreach. There's no immediate resources for shelter, clothing, anything, or even counseling. There's no residential structure that is set up for men like they have for women. And I think that it's a travesty with lawmakers and politicians, state, federal, that they haven't adopted and implemented a facility that will cater to men who are victims of domestic violence. A lot of times people tend to think that domestic violence only consists of physical nature, and that's not so. I mean, I know firsthand it's the emotional stuff. And a lot
of women, if they get beat up or something like that, they can go to a women's shelter for a man. If we got beat up or kicked out or asked to leave, where are we gonna go? We don't have nowhere to go, and we can't just go up and up to our families' houses, especially if they're full or whatnot, and or they just don't want you there, But the thing is, it's harder for a man to get the resources because they look at us as the man, and we should know what we're supposed to be doing, and we should have a job, and we should be better prepared than what we are, but we're really not. We're just as vulnerable as a woman is when we get put in that type of situation. It takes away from you as a man, like you don't feel like a man anymore. You have everything just take away from you, and you try to go and get the help that you need, but they tell you, oh, well, sorry, we can't help you, and it's like, what's that? What are you supposed to do? You can't jump across the table and yell at them or whatever like that. It's just you have to suck it up, walk back out on that street, keep your head up high, and just do what you can to survive.
It has been an extreme burden, not only on myself, but friends and family as well, and even the community. It's a travesty that we live in a time and era now where it's implausible that these type of services is not available to men. It has gotten to a point where now it's as if men have to liberate themselves from women. The services are catered around women, and it doesn't afford us equal protection of the law. If under the law the women can receive these services for the crimes committed against them, then equal protection of the law should protect the men as well, and we should have services that are equal to that.
Yeah, with me living with my sister and her man and their kids, I am a burden on them. I eat their food. Yes, I pay them each month, but to me, it's not enough. They've done a lot more than what I have done for them. They gave me a room, gave me a roof over my head, and I know down the line I'm going to have to move on. I don't know what to do these days. Like, I hate mooching off people, but I don't have nothing.
Well, it's like the same reason, like if a woman gets beat up and she leaves and she keeps going back, she loves them. Same for us. When we get put in a situation where we argue, fight, whatever, and I get kicked out, I'm gonna go back because I love it, because I'm expecting stuff to change, work out for the better, for the best. But the only problem is when you go back is like you feel like you have fear, something to be afraid of, like, oh my God, if I tell her to shut up, I don't want her to call the police on me. Because then I'm going to go to jail for domestic or something like that, and it's like, when you do go back, you want everything to change for the better, not for the worse, but there's always something to be fearful of, because now she has more power than you do as a man, now it's like you have no more power, and it's not to be controlling or anything like that, but it's just like you don't have a hearsay no more. I was like, I always have to look over my shoulder, be careful, watch what I say, stuff like that. And it's like we can't sit down and have a reasonable conversation without being fearful of something going wrong, you know. But we always go back because, like I said, it's like when we love them, you know. And it's what can you do, you know? Hopefully the relationship will become healthier and better for yourself and for her, you know. And if you got kids around, for the kids too.
Well, you find comfort in your suffering, and what I mean by that is that a lot of times you need that other individual in order to meet your basic needs, necessities. So you deal with it, and you know, you accept the consequences of that because there's no resources. It's easy for a woman to just jump up and leave and go to the shelter, where men, we're not afforded that luxury or that convenience to do that. We're forced to stay, and then it gets to the point where men will tend to lash out. Not that it's okay to lash out, but a person can only take so much, you know, and you become more of a reactor. You know, you have to walk around on eggshells, even in your own house. I've had situations where me and my significant other had an incident, and I was the sole person on the lease, and she had stayed there a short time, and the cops came and they asked me to leave, and I'm like, well, she doesn't even live here. At the time, she was currently in a women's shelter, and things weren't working out. I mean, it worked out for a short period of time, then it went back to the same thing as far as the arguments and everything. And it wasn't until I ended up going to treatment and developed some coping skills to communicate with you know, my significant other and get to the root of the issue instead of pointing the finger and blaming one another. We were both at blame and fault for what was happening, and it also even inspired me to write a poem, it's called Blaming. I never can say to you what's right. It's always been taken on grounds to fight. We say things different but yet mean the same, but somehow you place me with all the blame. I try to explain in a different way, hoping you acknowledge the words I say, that when I say I accept my blame, and hoping in honesty you would do the same. But before I conclude, I have one last thought. A solution's the answer, and not who's at fault. Okay, the difference in when a man calls the cops on a female for domestic violence is a lot different from when a woman calls. From my experience, I've experienced where I've called the cops and they came out, they did their preliminary investigations. My significant other was offered a ride to the shelter. Or to a friend's house, somewhere where she could stay, but there was no bruises on me, so she wasn't arrested, even though I was physically struck. Opposed to if she calls him, there's been times where she's called and she says, "Oh, he slapped me." It might have been because I've spent way too much money. They would come out, and without seeing any physical signs of an assault, I would be hauled off to jail. And there's times when there's been a witness there where nothing has taken place, but we got into an argument, and the neighbors have called the cops. When they do their on-site investigation, they pull the alleged woman and the witness off to the side together. Now, why wouldn't their stories corroborate each other when they're giving their sides of the story right there? So the witnesses just corroborating everything that was mentioned, where I'm off to the side by myself and I'm attempting to look, nothing happened. But because I've conceded and pled to a lot of domestic charges because knowing that I'll plead it down to a disorderly conduct, that this was going to come back to bite me. I never realized that